No one remembered the last time the galaxy had been afraid of humanity. That perhaps was the greatest mistake the Concorde had ever made. For nearly 3 centuries, the Treaty of Silent Force had governed warfare among the stars. It was a sprawling document, amended and reinforced by 100 civilizations who had learned, through blood, fire, and the annihilation of entire suns, that there were limits to what reality itself could endure. Weapons that cracked planets, weapons that destabilized spacetime, weapons that reached backward along causality and erased civilizations before they had ever learned to scream. All of them were banned. The Concorde called it enlightenment. Humanity called it survival. Earth had entered the galactic stage late, noisy, and bruised. By the time human explorers first pierced the interstellar medium, the great empires were already ancient. They had risen, fallen, and stabilized into something cold and self-satisfied. Humanity was classified as a Category 3 species, adaptive, emotionally volatile, technologically promising, but strategically insignificant. The classification had stuck. Humans dismantled their most devastating arsenals without protest. Planet killers were disassembled. Reality shears were buried inside stars. Fleet doctrines were rewritten. Entire branches of military science were erased from public record. The Concorde praised them for their cooperation. What the Concorde never bothered to ask was why humans agreed so easily. Ambassador Elias Wren stood alone on the observation deck of Concorde Station, watching the slow rotation of the galactic core. From this altitude, the spiral arms looked peaceful, billions of stars arranged like a cathedral ceiling. It was beautiful in the way only distance could make something beautiful. Behind him, the council chamber buzzed with alien voices. Harmonized speech, bioluminescent color shifts, electromagnetic pulses translated into sound. 1,000 species discussing trade routes, border adjustments, and today human compliance. Ambassador Wren, came the voice of Councillor Shakath, a towering Kelari whose crystalline skin refracted light into shifting rainbows. You have reviewed the compliance audit. Wren didn't turn around. I have. And you confirm that Earth has dismantled all prohibited weapon systems. Yes, Wren said calmly, every system listed under Annex 7. Shakath's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Then the matter is resolved. Humanity remains a non-threat. A few councillors emitted approving frequencies. Others barely paid attention. Humanity was an afterthought, a species that had arrived too late to matter and too early to be extinct. Wren finally turned, resting his hands on the smooth railing. Councillor, he said, may I ask a question? Shakath inclined his head. You may. Do you believe the treaty prevents war, Wren asked, or merely changes its shape? The chamber quieted slightly. Shakath's colors shifted toward amusement. War is the application of force, he replied. By limiting force, we limit war. Wren nodded. That's what I thought. The council moved on. 3 cycles later, the border system of Helios Reach went dark. At first, it was dismissed as a stellar anomaly. Helios Reach sat near a volatile region of subspace where sensor ghosts and communication delays were common. When the mining stations failed to report in, the Concorde filed it under expected loss variance. Then the refugees arrived. They came in civilian freighters, hulls scorched, drives failing, life support barely holding. Their species, Talari, avian descended and biologically fragile, had been Concorde members for over 1,000 years. Their testimony was consistent. A fleet had appeared without warning. No standard weapon signatures, no FTL wake, no declaration of war. The Talari defense grid had activated automatically, firing treaty-compliant energy lances. The enemy ships hadn't dodged. They hadn't needed to. A space had simply folded. Talari vessels crumpled like paper caught in a closing fist. Stations fractured silently. Atmospheres vented into nothingness. No explosions, no radiation spikes, just destruction, precise and absolute. Within hours, Helios Reach was empty. The Concorde panicked quietly. Emergency sessions were convened. Sensor data was analyzed and reanalyzed. No banned technologies were detected. No causality violations. No exotic particle signatures. Whoever had done this had followed the treaty perfectly. Which made it worse. Councillor Shakath addressed the chamber, his once prismatic colors dulled by unease. "We face an unknown aggressor," he declared, "one that operates within our laws but beyond our understanding." A dozen species proposed responses: sanctions, coalition fleets, defensive fortification. None mentioned humanity. Until the projection appeared. A human ship, drifting at the edge of Helios Reach's former gravity well. It was SM. All by Concorde standards. No ornate spires or glowing weapon ports, just a slab of dark metal, angular and utilitarian. It hadn't fired a single shot. It had simply been there. Ambassador Wren stood as the chamber erupted. "That vessel," Shakath demanded, "is human." "Yes," Wren replied evenly. "Explain." Wren took a breath. He had known this moment would come, had prepared for it, had hoped foolishly that it wouldn't. "That ship is a monitor class," he said. "Unarmed, autonomous, it observes treaty compliance." "Observes," shrieked a Viex delegate. "Our worlds are destroyed." Wren met their gaze. "Not by us." "Then why was it there?" "Because Helios Reach was flagged as a potential violation zone." The chamber fell silent. Shakath's voice was dangerously calm. "A violation of what, Ambassador?" Wren chose his words carefully. "Of the assumptions the treaty is built on." He gestured, and the hologram shifted. A projection of the treaty itself filled the chamber, clauses highlighted in cold blue light. "The treaty bans weapons based on output," Wren said. "Energy thresholds, spatial distortion limits, causality interference." He paused. "It does not ban methods." Unease rippled through the delegates. "You see," Wren continued, "humanity learned something early in its history. Violence isn't about how hard you hit. It's about what you're willing to change." Shakath leaned forward. "Are you admitting to a breach?" "No," Wren said softly. "I'm warning you." The chamber erupted again, fear now threading through the outrage. Warning us of what? Demanded Shakath. Ren looked back toward the stars, where Helios Reach had once been. Of the fact, he said, that Earth hasn't built a new weapon in 300 years. A pause. We've been building alternatives. No one spoke. Somewhere far beyond the Concorde's carefully regulated borders, something ancient and patient shifted its attention. And for the first time since humanity had joined the galaxy, the great powers began to wonder what, exactly, humans had given up when they signed the treaty, and what they had kept. The Concorde's first mistake was assuming the destruction of Helios Reach was an attack. The second was assuming it had already happened. Emergency beacons flared across a dozen systems as sensor arrays began reporting anomalies, subtle at first. Star positions deviated by fractions of a percent. Gravity wells behaved strangely, tides pulling when they should have pushed. Communication signals arrived a few milliseconds earlier than they should have, or not at all. To most species, these were statistical errors. To humans, they were symptoms. Admiral Mara Ionescu stood on the bridge of the UNS Quiet Resolve, hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the tactical sphere. The ship was enormous by human standards, but compared to Concorde dreadnoughts, it was austere, no ceremonial curves, no luminous insignia. Everything existed for a reason, and nothing existed to be admired. "Confirm again," she said. Her operations officer swallowed. Gravitational coherence across the system is thinning, not collapsing, not spiking, just less consistent, like the universe is losing its grip. Ionescu nodded. Timeline. Unknown, the officer replied. That's the problem. There's no event horizon, no moment of failure. It's like watching erosion at relativistic speed. Across the bridge, a Concorde liaison, Council observer Trell, shifted uneasily. Trell's species communicated through subtle changes in skin texture, and right now every ridge on their body screamed distress. "This is impossible," Trell said. "You're describing a violation of fundamental constants." "No," Ionescu corrected gently. "I'm describing the absence of them." Trell stared. "That distinction is meaningless." "It wasn't to us," Ionescu said. She gestured, and the tactical display shifted. A web of faint lines appeared, connecting stars across dozens of systems. "This," she explained, "is what humans call the interstitium, the underlying structure that gives spacetime its stiffness. Most species exploit it, warp through it, fold it, punch holes in it." Trell recoiled slightly. "That sounds like banned terminology." Ionescu allowed herself a thin smile. "We noticed, so we stopped doing those things." "Then how are you traveling faster than light?" "We don't," Ionescu said. "We convince the universe to move us instead." Trell didn't respond. The Concorde response fleet assembled in record time. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, bristling with treaty-compliant armaments, surged toward the affected regions. Their orders were clear: identify the aggressor, contain the threat, and demonstrate unity. They found nothing. No enemy fleet, no weapons fire, no violations. What they did find were empty systems. Worlds intact, atmospheres stable, biospheres untouched, but uninhabited. Populations gone, not dead, not destroyed, simply absent. Pani, disease spread. Species that had prided themselves on rationality began invoking ancient myths. Predators from beyond reality, cosmic harvesters, divine retribution. The Concord demanded answers. Earth sent observers. Human ships appeared at the edges of afflicted systems, always unarmed, always silent. They never intervened, they never fled, they simply watched. Counselor Shakath confronted Ambassador Wren in private, his crystalline form fractured with stress-induced opacity. You knew, Shakath accused. You knew this was possible. Wren didn't deny it. We knew it was theoretical. Then why didn't you warn us? Wren's voice hardened. We tried. For 200 years, we tried to explain that the treaty addressed symptoms, not causes. That banning weapons doesn't ban ingenuity. Shakath's mandibles trembled. Then explain this. Explain what is taking our people. Wren exhaled slowly. Do you know what humanity's first interstellar war taught us? Shakath was silent. That there are worse fates than annihilation, Wren continued, and that the universe doesn't care how righteous your rules are. He activated a secure projection. The image that appeared was ancient, grainy, incomplete, a human research facility orbiting a dying star, scientists in pressure suits, instruments flickering. They were studying vacuum decay, Wren said, a hypothetical state where the laws of physics transition to a lower energy configuration. Shakath recoiled. That research was outlawed. Yes, Wren agreed, after we finished. The projection shifted. A simulation played out, a region of space where constants softened, where particles lost definition, where matter could no longer hold itself together. But here's the thing, Wren said. Decay is violent, loud, obvious. What scared us wasn't decay. The simulation changed again. This time, space-time didn't collapse. It thinned. Regions where causality still functioned, but loosely, where existence was optional. We discovered, Wren said quietly, that you don't need to break the universe to remove something from it. You just need to make it uninteresting. Shakath's colors dimmed to near black. You're saying these populations weren't destroyed? No, Wren said. They were displaced. Awareness. Wren hesitated. Somewhere between, he said, a conceptual space, not alive, not dead, preserved in a way that doesn't violate the treaty. Shakath staggered back. This is monstrous. Wren met his gaze. We thought so too, which is why we locked it away. Until now. Until someone else found it. That was the revelation that shattered the chamber when it was finally disclosed. The phenomenon wasn't human, but humanity had built the only tools capable of understanding it. The unknown aggressor, soon designated the Null Choir, wasn't attacking worlds. It was harvesting stability. And it had learned, somehow, to sing the same silent notes humanity had once experimented with. The Concord demanded Earth's immediate military intervention. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity refused. Admiral Ionescu addressed the council via secure link, her expression carved from stone. "We will not escalate," she said. "Not yet." "You are condemning us," cried a dozen delegates. "No," Ionescu replied. "We are preventing extinction." Shakath leaned forward. "Then tell us what you're hiding." Ionescu was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. "The treaty banned weapons," she said, "so we stopped building them." The feed shifted. A schematic appeared, vast, abstract, unlike any ship or gun. "We started building decisions." The schematic resolved into a network spanning light years. Human ships weren't weapons platforms. They were anchors. "And if we use them," Ionescu finished, "the galaxy will never be the same." Silence consumed the chamber. Far beyond Concord space, the Null Choir adjusted its song. And for the first time, it noticed something listening back. The galaxy learned what fear was supposed to feel like on the day the stars stopped agreeing with each other. It began as a navigational error. A Concord patrol group entering the Sable Corridor reported contradictory readings. 3 ships insisted the system's primary star was red, 2 claimed it was blue, and 1 swore there was no star at all. Their instruments were functioning perfectly. Their reality was not. Then the patrol vanished. No explosion, no debris field, no gravitational echo. Just absence. The Concord emergency protocols triggered automatically. Civilian traffic halted, borders sealed. Entire sectors went dark as species withdrew inward, clinging to home systems like frightened animals. And through it all, the human ships remained. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They waited. Admiral Mara Ionescu stood at the center of the Quiet Resolve's command ring as the last of the anchor fleet came online. 47 vessels positioned across a spiral of systems that traced the Null Choir's expansion pattern with terrifying precision. "Anchors synchronized," reported her tactical officer. "Phase stability holding for now." Ionescu closed her eyes briefly. "Broadcast to Earth Command," she said. "We're at threshold." The reply came almost instantly, routed through channels older than the Concorde itself. "Proceed when ready." On Concord Station, chaos reigned. Councillor Shakath struggled to maintain order as delegates shouted over one another, demands, accusations, pleas. Species that had once scoffed at humanity now begged for intervention. "You must act," cried a Viex warlord. "Your people created this knowledge." "We contained it," Ambassador Wren snapped back, "for centuries." Shakath raised both arms, light refracting wildly. "Enough, Admiral Ionescu, you have the floor." The human admiral appeared in the center of the chamber, life-sized and unadorned. "What you're facing," Ionescu began, "is not an enemy in the way you understand enemies. The Null Choir doesn't conquer, it doesn't destroy. It erases," someone shouted. "No," Ionescu corrected, "it unhooks." She gestured, and the chamber filled with a slow, unsettling visualization. Space as a woven fabric, not flat, but layered, self-reinforcing. Existence, she said, is an agreement between particles, between forces, between cause and effect. The choir disrupts that agreement locally, creating regions where the universe no longer insists on consistency. Shakath's voice was hoarse. And your anchors? They do the opposite, Ionescu said. They force the universe to decide. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. We learned long ago, she continued, that the most dangerous thing you can do isn't break reality. It's give it options. The display shifted. Human anchor ships glowed faintly as invisible lines snapped into place between them. The anchors don't fire, Ionescu said. They don't project force. They eliminate ambiguity. Within their network, physics becomes stubborn. A Viex delegate leaned forward. Then, why haven't you used them? Because, Ionescu replied, stability is just another kind of violence. The words landed like a blow. She didn't wait for debate. Activating phase lock, Ionescu said calmly. Across dozens of systems, the anchors hummed. Not audibly, not electromagnetically. Existentially. The first thing the galaxy noticed was the silence. Subspace noise vanished, quantum fluctuations flattened, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the null choir screamed. Every sensor in Concord space registered it differently: gamma spikes, neutrino storms, tachyon inversions, but the effect was universal. The choir's expansion stopped. Where its influence met the anchored regions, it recoiled, its song collapsing into discord. Human observers watched with grim satisfaction as the impossible happened. The choir couldn't thin stabilized spacetime. It couldn't exist there. Containment achieved, reported the quiet resolve. Null choir boundary holding. Cheers erupted across the Concord. They died instantly. Because the choir had never intended to expand forever. It had intended to learn. The stabilized region convulsed. Anchor ships shuddered as something pressed back, not with force, but with insistence. The choir adapted its song, modulating frequencies humanity had believed immutable. Ionescu's jaw tightened. It's harmonizing, she said. How is it harmonizing? A junior analyst whispered, it's using us as a reference. The truth spread through the fleet like ice water. By locking reality into a single configuration, humanity had given the choir a template. The choir pushed. 3 anchor ships vanished, not destroyed but reassigned. Their existence slid sideways, becoming something else entirely. Phase lock faltered. Admiral, shouted her officer, if the network collapses. I know, Ionescu snapped. Prepare secondary protocol. On Concord Station, panic returned with a vengeance. You said this would stop it, Shakath roared. It did, Ionescu replied, eyes blazing, briefly. Then what do we do? Ionescu looked directly at the council. Now, she said, we do the thing we swore we never would. The display changed. The anchors reconfigured, not as a net, but as a lens. Energy requirements spiked beyond anything the Concorde had ever sanctioned. yet still within treaty limits. No weapon discharged, no law was broken. Humanity, Ionescu said quietly, has always been very good at one thing. The lens activated. A choosing. Within the stabilized region, space-time collapsed, not violently, but decisively. Every possible state reduced to one. The choir found itself with no harmonics left to exploit. No ambiguity. No room to sing. It began to unravel, not dying, not destroyed, but forced into a singular, finite existence. For the first time, the galaxy saw the choir, not as a god, not as a foe of RCE, but as a frightened, constrained thing, suddenly subject to rules. Containment holding, whispered the bridge crew. Then the sensors flared again. Something else had noticed. Beyond the lens, deeper in the thinning dark, others shifted, vast, patient presences that had been listening to the choir for eons. And now they had heard humanity. Ionescu closed her eyes. "Council," she said softly, "we just told the universe we are willing to decide for it." The stars seemed to lean closer. The universe did not retaliate. That was what unsettled everyone the most. For 3 full standard cycles after the containment of the null choir, nothing happened. No new anomalies, no counter-harmonics, no cosmic backlash. The stars returned to their predictable rhythms, space-time regained its familiar elasticity, and the anchors held, quiet, unassuming, patient. Too patient. The Concord had expected consequences. Ancient powers rarely acted without response. Entire civilizations had been erased for less audacity than what humanity had just done. Instead, there was silence. Admiral Mara Ionescu did not trust it. She stood alone in the observation blister of the quiet resolve, watching the stabilized region where the choir had been forced into singularity. It resembled nothing so much as an ordinary patch of space, unremarkable, calm, obedient. Imprisonment disguised as normality. "Status?" she asked without turning. "Containment remains absolute," her science officer replied. "The choir is finite. It has boundaries now, a location, a duration." Ionescu nodded, and the others. The officer hesitated. No direct contact, but long-range existential sensors show attention, distributed, curious. Ionescu exhaled slowly. Of course they are. Humanity had not just stopped a cosmic predator. They had demonstrated authority. On Concord Station, the mood had shifted from panic to something far more dangerous. Awe. Councillor Shakath convened an emergency conclave, but this time the delegates did not shout. They whispered. Species that had once dismissed humans now watched every word from Earth with reverent caution. Ambassador Elias Wren stood before them, tired lines etched deep into his face. "You stabilized reality," Shakath said carefully. "You constrained an entity older than most of our civilizations." "Yes," Wren replied, "at significant cost." "What cost?" demanded a delegate. Wren didn't answer immediately. Instead, he activated a private channel and projected a feed from Earth. Cities glowed beneath clouds, oceans rolled, life continued blissfully unaware. Humanity has always lived with a paradox, Ren said quietly. We are capable of extraordinary destruction and extraordinary restraint. He looked up at the council. The anchors are not weapons, he continued, but they require something weapons never did. Shakath's colors darkened. What? Commitment, Ren said. Once activated at this scale, they cannot be turned off without consequences. We have fixed parts of reality into a permanent decision. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. We have reduced possibility, Ren said, not just for the choir, for everyone. A Viex delegate recoiled. You've crippled the galaxy. No, Ren corrected. We've narrowed it. The truth settled heavily. FTL routes near the anchored regions would never be as flexible again. Exotic technologies that relied on probabilistic physics would fail. Certain species, those who existed partially out of phase, would find those systems inhospitable. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had redefined it. And if we object, Shakath asked quietly. Ren met his gaze. Then you are free to challenge us. No threat accompanied the words. None was needed. The conclave ended without a vote. There was no need. In the weeks that followed, the others revealed themselves, not as invaders, but as observers. Vast intelligences brushed the edges of human sensorium, testing boundaries, probing the anchored regions with infinite care. They did not cross. Humanity had spoken in a language older than stars. Here, reality is not optional. The null choir remained contained, studied at a distance. It no longer sang, it listened. Some among the Concord argued it should be destroyed. Humanity refused. It was doing what it was built to do, Admiral Ionescu said during a closed session. So were we. And what was it built to do? Asked Shakath. Ionescu considered the question. To remind the universe that existence isn't guaranteed, she said. We reminded it that sometimes it is enforced. Earth's position in galactic society changed quietly but irrevocably. Human ships were no longer ignored. Human envoys were no longer patronized. Treaties were revised, not to restrict humanity, but to account for it. The Treaty of Silent Force was amended with a single new clause. No signatory shall unilaterally impose permanence upon shared reality. It was largely symbolic. Humanity had already done it once. They did not need to do it again. Years later, long after the panic had faded into history, a junior Concord archivist asked an old question. Why didn't the humans use this power earlier? Why wait until everything was almost lost? The answer came from an unexpected source, an ancient human recording, predating even first contact. A voice, calm and weary, spoke into the archive. Because the moment you decide for everyone else, it said, you stop being part of the argument. Humanity had never wanted to rule the galaxy. They had wanted to belong to it. But when the universe itself had begun to fray, when laws became optional and existence negotiable, someone had needed to choose. So humans did what they had always done best. They endured. They restrained. And when there was no other option left, they decided. And the galaxy, at last, understood why Earth's weapons had been banned by treaty, and why what humans invented instead was far worse.